channel. This is Quantum Visions, and in this video, this is a heavy one. We're talking about a woman who heard and witnessed stories of child sacrifices happening in Uganda. Okay, now she's about to touch on it, give us some insight on how and where did these instances take place. And a lot of these stories I do is they're tough for me. I'm gonna be honest with you, but I'm trying to, help spread some of this truth out there so you all can be able to see what's really going on in the world and not live in this little bubble. Okay, and if you want to see more videos like this, hit the like and subscribe. Let's get it.
How did you get involved in the kind of activism that you've been doing that we're going to talk about today?
Well, do you know what? There's this thing about the word activism that just sounds a bit like, I want to say poncy, but I don't. Like, it sounds like activism is kind of like saved for the middle class, really posh, loaded kids who are rebelling against their really loaded parents, and I'm just not that at all. So I would not consider myself an activist. Do you know what I mean? Yeah, it's not that at all.
We need another word.
I don't know. What would you suggest?
Impactful stuff.
I don't know. I think it got to a point where I was working and, enjoying my job, but feeling a little bit kind of like, there could be something else kind of out there. And I wanted a bit of a change. And I reached out to a lady who ran a baby's home in Uganda. And she sort of often looked for and needed TV people to go over there and shoot films and edit them and stuff. And I very quickly agreed and, went to Uganda. I think it was only supposed to be about 3 months, and I ended up staying 6 or 7 in the first instance. And at this baby's home, which is a little bit like, somewhere in between a baby's home and a rescue centre. There are children there from the ages of like 0 to 11, 12.
So when she said a rescue centre, it just automatically made me think of somewhere where you would take like, abandoned children, children who've been abandoned, like a foster home or something like that. That's what it sounds like a foster home.
Who have been sort of either found abandoned or rescued from their homes, brought to this baby's home, and they try and basically find Ugandan families to adopt these kids.
So foster
and there was one girl there who had, I was told, survived child sacrifice, and it was through her and the organisation that I learnt quite a lot about what this practice is and the effects it's had on the country.
Was that a shock for you to learn about? I mean, did you know that existed?
Not specifically child sacrifice. I knew that, there was such things as the occult, and I knew about witchcraft through my dad, who's Nigerian, but I hadn't ever heard about like sacrifice. And obviously, like, there are sacrifices that are made, but it's always to do with animals and chickens and
yeah, but I mean, if you understand, that people do sacrifices, like for Passover in the Bible, you have to sacrifice the lamb, stuff like that. But we're talking about child sacrifices, like whatever that they need to sacrifice these children for is for the devil. That's pretty much it. Like, there's no other reason for you to be sacrificing children. Like, I don't know what they're doing, but hopefully she could spread some light on it so we could really see what's happening.
Which is very, very common, but never had I heard of humans being sacrificed, and certainly not children.
Yeah, it's really quite unnerving and scary. I thought the same as you, and I thought it was maybe like, I don't know, an old wives' tale, or maybe even like a xenophobic thing about, these other countries where that happens. I suppose is it embarrassing for a lot of people from those countries that this goes on? Are people in these countries, in the cities, are they aware of this happening?
Do you know what? I wouldn't say embarrassed. I think there's obviously a lot of shame, right? There's a lot of shame. I think people do realize it's happening. You can't not. However, it's not so.
Hopefully she get to it because I'm like, what are they doing? Like, are their children coming up missing? Are they? I'm just not. I'm not understanding it fast enough. It's almost, she's kind of like pushing it. Like, it's almost as if she's afraid to really talk about it. But like, I understand it is a very unnerving situation. Something to have witnessed or even have heard stories where you've seen a child and then you like where they at and they've been sacrificed. Like, I mean,
it's a taboo subject, right? It's, people aren't open about it unless you really ask the questions. And I found when I heard about this and I went researching, people were really kind of hesitant at first to talk about it, but it only took a little bit of digging and scratching the surface, and they would just unearth all of these awful stories that they were so obviously keen to talk about and needed for themselves, you know, to explain to someone, even though I was a foreigner, what was happening in their country, because it felt to me as though they'd never been asked, yet they really wanted to communicate this horror that was happening all around them. So, do people know about it? Yes. People are willing to talk about it, but you just got to ask the questions and ask the right questions.
Is it a horror for everyone? Because I guess some of these people are carrying out the practice. So for those people, did you speak to any of those people, and were they sort of defending the practice?
No, of course, like no one would outright come out and say that they had. However, I made like a little documentary about it, as much for me really to sort of help document what I was hearing, but also because at one point I wanted to take it to the government and just say, look, this is what's happening. And I met, you know, survivors of child sacrifice. I met parents who'd lost their children. I interviewed the police, the judiciary, but I also interviewed this witch doctor who had very recently given up the practice. I didn't and could not ask him outright if he had, you know.
This is 100% pure witchcraft, because why would you need a witch doctor? Apparently, they're sacrificing these children for whatever their cause is, and it's detrimental to everyone around them. I mean, it's the occult. That's what they're doing.
Was involved in sacrificing children, but there was an air about him that he had done things that he was not proud of. So, yeah, I kind of got close. I met this one woman. In fact, yes, I met this one woman. I won't say where, and she did actually admit to sacrificing children. I had completely forgotten about this. I was not actually traveling. I wasn't actually specifically working on this side of, you know, on researching child sacrifice at all. I met her completely by chance, and I got talking about what I was doing, and she said that her family had forced her, or introduced her to the occult, and she had been sort of born into this idea that, you know, when you sacrifice children, it will lead to riches and prosperity, and she was forced to carry out these things, and she was deeply.
You're sacrificing children for riches and prosperity. How can you be prosperous sacrificing children? I'm not understanding this. Just so there's some spell you gotta cast? Like, I don't want, you could keep it. If that's what I gotta do, you can keep that right over there. I'm good. Nah, I'm all right.
Deeply ashamed. The conversation couldn't have lasted more than 5 minutes. And she was just desperate to get out of her situation. I don't know if she was continuing, you know, if she was still doing it then, but yeah, it's so weird. I'd completely forgotten about that. And it's something that I wish I'd remembered a long time ago, because, yeah, I don't know, perhaps I probably would have behaved a bit differently. I don't know, weirdly.
How so?
Well, I was so wrapped up in like just trying to sort of get the message out there that this exists. But actually, weirdly, there are people who clearly are involved in this, who are desperate to get out. It probably wasn't a fight that I was able to take on at the time, but in hindsight, I wish I paid a bit more attention to that. And there's no way in hell I'll be able to find her now.
Yeah, well, hindsight, it's one of those things as a journalist, isn't it? It's impossible. Right. There's so many leads, aren't there? And you just can't possibly remember all of them. And,
Yeah.
You spoke of parents, losing their children. I mean, so is it often that one sacrifices one's own children, or that they're sort of taken from the parents?
Both. So children, it's easier to sacrifice your own children for accessibility reasons. And also there is a myth that when you sacrifice your own child, your own blood, it's whatever you're trying to do is more likely to work. Because it's effectively a bigger sacrifice. But more often than not, children are abducted on their way to school.
So it's better for me to sacrifice my own kids because I'm using my own blood, so I'm going to get what I want back better and faster. But if I sacrifice another child, I got to sacrifice 4 or 5 of them? Like, it just doesn't. See how nonsensical that sounds? Like, that does not sound like something that you should be doing with yourself. But, I mean, no, I'm not about to say if you want to do what you want to do, no, because that's some bullshit. You should not be doing that. I'm sorry.
Or when they're sort of working in the fields, especially. So, either one of those.
It must be terrifying. For the families. But I mean, we do a lot on this podcast. I'm always talking about, cults and extreme ideologies, and that even, the banality of evil, how these beliefs can make even good people do awful things. Do you think these people...
I believe some people are good, but like, if you doing this, like, you could back out of it, but if you doing it, like, like, you shouldn't be doing that. Like, right then and there, you should not be sacrificing those children. You know how much pain they must be in? What you did? You sedated them? Come on, man.
When they're sacrificing their children, I mean, they must... Firstly, they really believe that it's going to bring good things. Do you know of any beliefs they have about the child itself? Like, okay, now my child's going to go to heaven?
No, and I haven't ever heard of that. No. No, why? Have you?
No, it's just because it's so
extreme,
difficult to imagine a parent sacrificing their own child unless there was a reason, like, okay, but they're going to go to heaven, so it's okay.
Well, I can tell you why. I think it's not just... I think it's really easy to point the finger and say, you're so fucking evil, you've done this to your child. And absolutely, I am not condoning it one bit. But there are, there's 2 ends of this spectrum here. You've got the rich people who are sacrificing children to kind of maintain their wealth. And then you've got the really, really poor, impoverished, desperate people who are sacrificing children, their own children, to emerge from that poverty because they genuinely feel as though there is no other way. They've been brainwashed.
I'm sorry, I have to stop this video right here. First of all, I don't care how impoverished I am. I am not about to sacrifice my children to get money so that I can be well off. And then where are they now? Their spirit is gone. And then now I got money. Like, that's selfish. It's irresponsible. And it's inhumane. And you do not deserve to be a parent if you decide to take such actions to improve your wealth. And I'm ending it right there. And if you want to see more videos like this, hit the like and subscribe. Let's get it.